The Elektron Digitone Keys. I've had this sleek sound machine in my studio for over 3 years, which I used extensively to produce several releases, all while having it act as my main polysynth, bass synth and master sequencer. So how has this investment turned out for me? And perhaps more importantly, with so much other gear to choose from, is the Digitone worth the time and effort required to beat its learning curve? In order to figure that out, we'll be taking a look at the following. Why I chose the keys over the box version, what sounds I'm able to squeeze out of it, how I use it as the master sequencer for all the other gear that I have there behind me, and finally what issues I've come across while using it. Not a whole lot of synths have this form factor and not a lot of people really like it, but I love it. The way I approach composition is I'll have my left hand on the sound design knobs where I focus most of my attention, and I'll have my right hand on the keys playing some chords, staccato notes or what have you. I'm not the most proficient keyboard player, nor is it something that I focus on heavily in my music, so having high quality keys off to the side in 3 octaves sits just right with me. Since my composing and recording setup does not include a DAW, I really appreciate having stereo out for each of the Digitone's tracks, so that I can record and mix each track independently. If you were using Overbridge hooked up to a computer, you could do the same thing over USB, in which case the vanilla tone would probably be all that you need. One thing to keep in mind is that you can't use the excellent master effects on each of the tracks when sending them out independently, since the master effects are only applied to the master out, which makes sense. Of course, this is not a problem because it gives me reason to get more gear. Right now I have track 1, which is usually my bass line, running into mono through the Boss GT001 for some added effects. And sometimes I'll have a track go to the Digitech Polara for some of that sweet shimmer reverb. But I'll probably be doing that much more often once I replace the Polara with the Strymon Night Sky. Strymon, if you're watching, hit me up. Being an FM synth with a multi-mode filter, insane potential for modulation and excellent effects, I found the Digitone a dream machine for sound design. The FM part has been made more approachable with preset algorithms and musical ratios, but also expanded with oscillator shape-shifting and additional capabilities, making it extremely versatile when it comes to creating new sounds. Bass, crazy leads, pads, drums, weird effects. There are really very few areas in which the Digitone doesn't shine. The only notable exception I've experienced is when it comes to designing the sound of strings, as I haven't really been able to create anything that resembles a string ensemble. But maybe my skills are simply not up to par yet, or maybe I'm just asking for too much. One criticism that digital synths, especially FM synths, usually get is that they generally tend to sound cold and more brittle than their analog brethren. I do apply a good amount of tape saturation at a couple of stages during my mixing process, so this has not been an issue for what I'm trying to achieve. But even without that, I think that the onboard drive on the Digitone, coupled with slow pitch, volume and filter modulation, can go a long way in helping this synth sound more organic and warmer than you might expect. If you're interested in hearing how I came up with a specific sound that you've heard in my music, in this video, or based on what I've said, then just let me know in the comments and I'll put that into one of my next videos. And if you're getting value thus far, I'd appreciate you giving this video a thumbs up. If you've ever partaken in the masochistic endeavor of putting together a DAWless setup, then you've no doubt had a jolly good time of trying to figure out who's going to be the main brain of this operation that's going to be sequencing all the other gear. In my case, I have the Digitone acting as the master sequencer and master clock for all of my other gear, by sending MIDI to all my other instruments through this simple MIDI box. I've got MIDI tracks 1 and 2 going out to the Roland TR-6S. Track 1 is usually in charge of the kick and snare, while track 2 does the cymbals. I've got MIDI track 3 sequencing the Dreadbox Typhon, and sometimes I'll also use track 4 if I want to quickly change between two sequences within the same pattern on the Typhon. Now, what's especially great about all this is that I can add LFOs to my other gear, or use the excellent Elektron sequencer to send MIDI CC messages per each step. All of this basically supercharges my other gear, giving it functionality that it wouldn't have on its own. The only thing I feel is missing is a MIDI arpeggiator, simply because there already exists an excellent synth arpeggiator. And it would be great to have it available for MIDI sequencing as well. Here's hoping to a future update that will add this functionality. Speaking of updates, Elektron has been most excellent in updating their existing gear. And probably the biggest update they've released for the Digitone and the Digitone Keys so far is song mode. When I just got the synth and started recording the first couple of songs, I had to chain up multiple patterns before hitting record, and then again sometimes right in the middle of a more complex song. It definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone and added an additional performance element to the whole recording process. But none of that matters anymore. At one point I actually bought the Polyphonic tracker and started setting it up as the main sequencer of my setup because of its song mode feature. But right around the same time, Elektron released the Digitone song mode update, and I sold the Polyphonic tracker without even blinking. Now, some people may say that the Elektron sequencer has a steep learning curve, but I disagree. If you put in the time to learn it, you'll be off to the races within a week. And you'll need a couple of more weeks to become completely fluent in the workflow and thankful for the incredible amount of power you have under your fingertips. And so finally we come down to the long list of problems I've had with the Digitone over the years. I'm just kidding. I've only had one issue with the synth that's worth mentioning. Some, but not all, of the mechanical trigger keys have response problems. If I press them lightly, they will get triggered several times per press. After some use, the problem seems to go away or happens a lot less often. I've contacted both the store where I bought it while it was under warranty, and I've contacted Elektron via email. And both of the responses I got said the same thing, that I should pack up the synth and send it off to Sweden for repairs. The problem is not that serious for me to have to resort to such drastic measures, because I imagine that doing so will keep me away from making music for quite a while. I've searched online and I have not found other users experiencing similar issues to what I've come across. So perhaps I just got a unit with several semi-faulty triggers, or perhaps the wild temperature and humidity swings that my studio experiences have played a role in making this issue come about. Whatever the case, I don't see it as a huge problem, but it is an issue worth mentioning. Having said all that, I'm extremely happy with how kind the Digitone has been to my creative process overall. But that really shouldn't be a big surprise, because I've actually read the manual for it cover to cover before even buying it. And so I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. If you own the Digitone, I'd like to hear your experiences with using it. And if you're looking to buy one, let me know what other videos I can make about it, in order to dispel any questions or concerns you may have. Speak up in the comments, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.